According to the news-making media round, Travis Scott may not be taking any trips to Astroworld for a while. I mean, after what happened at the Astroworld concert on November 5th, 2021, I don't think anyone will be going to Astroworld in a while.
I'm honestly just devastated, and I could never imagine anything like this just happening.
We might be saying goodbye to Travis Scott forever in today's video. So, we're going to tell you all about his sentencing and the events at Astroworld 2021. What happened at Astroworld? With over 50,000 people in attendance at the HRG Park for Travis Scott's Astroworld concert, the whole arena was jam-packed. What started as a regular happy day, with fans ready to bump to live music from their favorite rapper, turned out to be one of the biggest tragedies of the year. Travis was the star rapper at the Astroworld Festival, which was supposed to be on for 2 days, so when he made a tweet that he's about to go on stage, the crowd went wild, literally. After the tweet, came an announcement of Travis Scott's performance, and in no time, the crowd turned into a wild surge of fans, moving towards the stage and cramping each other. There was no room left for any air to get in. Heck, there was no room for anyone to even be there. According to a witness, it was so tight that once your heads went up, they stayed up. It wasn't much longer before it turned into a stampede. At this time, an already hyped Travis was ready to perform on stage alongside Drake. The two rappers had no idea what was going on in the crowd. To the rappers, it was a regular crowd screaming their throats out to their music. Little did they know, the crowd was screaming for their lives. They kept on performing until Travis noticed an ambulance arrive into the wild crowd. That was when he sensed trouble. A video online showed Travis looking puzzled when he saw the ambulance drive in. With the surge going on, many of the concertgoers tried to escape from the venue, but they couldn't as there were hardly any escape exits and everywhere was cramped up. They described the surge as a weighted blanket lying on you. Some of them were lucky to escape the crazy crowd. A witness, Madeline Eskins, was among the lucky persons to escape the wild crowd at the Astroworld concert. She was crowd surfed to safety after she passed out. When asked about the details of the events, she said, as the timer on the screen counted down 30 minutes of Scott's performance, people pressed up against each other and were pushing forward and backward, and it got progressively worse.
When he started the timer, people started pushing. They pushed forward and then other people would push back and forward and back.
I was having constant pressure on my chest, constant pressure on my back. From the side, I was being squeezed. Not many people were as lucky as Miss Madeline, as over 100 people were injured. Several persons were hospitalized, and 9 people lost their lives in the tragedy that occurred at Astroworld 2021. Astroworld casualties. At the time the dust settled, lives were lost, people were hospitalized, and several persons were injured. According to reports, 9 people lost their lives as a result of the tragic incident, including a 14-year-old high school student and a promising young doctor who was working on a medical machine to help his mother walk again. The youngest victim who lost his life at the concert was 14-year-old John Hilgert. He was a freshman at Memorial High School in Houston. Green ribbons were found wrapped around the building of the school to honor young John. Another victim of the tragic event was 16-year-old Brianna Rodriguez, who was a junior at Heights High School and had a passion for dancing. While describing Brianna, Julia Hasbrock, one of her teammates, said, "She was one of our top dancers, our biggest hype man for everyone. She always brings energy to the team, just so passionate." 20-year-old Jacob Juranek also lost his life at the concert. He was a student at Southern Illinois University Carbondale, and according to the school's chancellor, Austin Lane, Juranek was a creative, intelligent young man with a promising career in journalism and advertising. Rodolfo Pena, 23, also lost his life in the incident. Franco Patino, 21, was studying mechanical engineering technology and human movement biomechanics. According to his family, even though he was a hardworking individual, he would always try to make time for his family and the people he cared about. Franco was one of the victims of the horrifying event. Danish Baig also lost his life in a bid to save his fiance and his brother from getting hurt. Basil Baig said his brother's fiance survived, but is bruised all over her body and is traumatized. Basil, who was also there, also said he was hurt and traumatized. Axel Acosta Avila, 21, was at the event alone. And according to his aunt, it was his first time going to such an event. Sadly, he didn't make it back home. Bardi Shahani, a 22-year-old college student, also lost her life in a tragic event. According to her sister, it was the first music festival they had ever been to. Bardi made it to the hospital, but she suffered several heart attacks and she lost oxygen for 10 minutes at one point and 7 minutes at another time. At the time she got to the hospital, her brainstem was swollen to almost 90%, and the doctor said she had 0 chances of survival. Sadly, she lost the battle. 9-year-old Ezra Blount is still fighting the battle as he's been placed in a medically induced coma. Ezra had gone to the concert with his father and his father carried him on his shoulders. When the surge began, his father passed out and he fell off his shoulders. By the time he woke up, he couldn't find his son. At the time he was found, Ezra had suffered lung, liver, and kidney injuries. He also suffered brain swelling and he went into a cardiac arrest on his way to the hospital. He was placed in a medical-induced coma to reduce the swelling. By the time the grounds were cleared, at least 25 people were hospitalized and over hundreds were injured. Thankfully, many people still made it home to their families with little or no physical injuries, but severe trauma. Delayed rescue response. Fans who made it back home and the rest of the world have been puzzled about the turnout of events at the Astroworld concerts. Everyone has been asking, what happened to escape exits? Where were the security officials? Where were the medical officials? What really went wrong at the event? The true answers they will need will take weeks or even months of investigation, but thankfully, some witnesses have been able to answer some of those questions. The concert goers made several efforts to end the concert, but they all fell on deaf ears. The concert had 528 police officers and 755 private security officers, yet the witnesses claim that their efforts to alert police, security guards, and other officials working at the festival as things started to turn more dangerous were all ignored. A concert goer, Bahir Kashif, shared his experience at the event and the response the officials gave amid the situation. According to Bahir, being in the midst of that surge was a living hell. Luckily for him, he escaped the crowd and he ran toward a medic tent to sound the alarm when he saw a group of about 15 uniformed Houston police officers and he approached them. He said, "Hey, there's a group in this little section who are suffocating. They're gonna die. They cannot breathe. We need to go help them. Get them out." They basically said, "Calm down. We're aware of the situation. We're dealing with something else right now, but we'll take care of it." According to Kashif, the police officer stood there and did nothing about it. He went on to talk to them, but they still didn't try to make any response to the situation. He said, "Their calm response bugged me out a little. I tried again, telling them I'm not trying to be an but there's people in there who are probably dying. I was basically told to f off. There's no urgency at all." People stuck in the crowd tried to climb onto the risers that had cameras that were filming Scott's performance to be streamed live on Apple Music in order to communicate with the crew about the situation happening on the ground. The crew members ignored them and asked them to get off the risers. According to one of the concert goers, they didn't have any communications with the EMTs or security. They couldn't help. There was just no preparation for them to have an emergency scenario like that. Speaking about show's preparation, a freelancer who worked at the event claimed that she voiced out on the poor safety status of the venue. She had some concerns about the safety of the venue as she saw people jump over the barricade easily. She said, "I got crushed in the crowd between the barricade and the fence in the tunnel going out. I was very scared. I got out. I texted the PR. I told them it was an unsafe situation and I wouldn't be going back out. They made an alternate plan to enter and exit the opposite side of the stage all day." According to her, the officials didn't take further safety protocols. Will Travis be sentenced? Sadly, the events of Astroworld 2021 may not only be the end of Travis Scott's career, but it may also lead him to declare bankruptcy, and even worse, it may send him behind bars. A little over 80 lawsuits have been filed against Travis Scott and Drake over the tragic Astroworld incident. In one lawsuit, Scott was accused of actively encouraging and fomenting dangerous behaviors that led to the deaths, as well as 23 people being hospitalized, 11 people going into cardiac arrest, and more than 300 people being treated for injuries on site. This isn't the first time that unfortunate events of fans losing their lives in a concert have occurred, and the celebrities were not sued or held liable, but things are a bit different for Travis Scott. For starters, Travis wasn't just a performer, but an organizer and supervisor of the event. According to reports, Scott had been warned by Finner, the Houston police chief, about potential crowd issues and the safety protocols. He, however, failed to take this into consideration. In one of the lawsuits, Travis was sued for inciting mayhem and is likely to be used against him, as some lawyers in the suits claim that he has a history of riling up crowds in a way that authorities have considered reckless. He's been arrested twice for encouraging concertgoers to ignore security and storm his stage in Chicago and Arkansas. In fact, Travis Scott is in an ongoing lawsuit with a certain Kyle Green, who sued him for encouraging fans to jump from a balcony at a New York venue. Kyle jumped and he's currently paralyzed. Some lawyers have argued that his violent lyrics should be used against him. One lawyer refers to the lyrics from his song Stargazing, where he said, "It ain't a mosh pit if ain't no injuries." While the victims have filed lawsuits against the organizers of the Astroworld Festival, investigations are still ongoing and criminal charges have not yet been pressed. They haven't been able to prove any traces of criminal activities, however, there's a small opening to consider that. An injury lawyer involved in the suit said, "We're starting to see small openings of that, like the fact that the police chief met with Scott previous to the show and there was a conversation with him about security. If any criminal activities are discovered, we may be saying goodbye to Travis Scott for a really long time." Travis and Drake's statement. Travis was beyond shaken by the incident that happened at Astroworld, from the lives lost to the multiple lawsuits filed. The rapper has been having a pretty rough time. He, however, released a statement where he said, "My prayers go out to the families and all those impacted by what happened at Astroworld Festival. Houston PD has my total support as they continue to look into the tragic loss of life. I'm committed to working together with the Houston community to heal and support the families in need. Thank you, Houston PD, Fire Department, and NRG Park for their immediate response and support."
I just want to send out prayers to the ones that was lost last night.
Travis Scott will be taking up the expenses for the funerals of the victims who lost their lives, as well as providing 1 month of free therapy for people who made it out of the concert alive. Drake, who also performed alongside Travis, shared his condolences via his Instagram page. He wrote, "I spent the past few days trying to wrap my mind around this devastating tragedy. I hate resorting to this platform to express an emotion as delicate as grief, but this is where I found myself. My heart is broken for the families and friends of those who lost their lives and for anyone who's suffering. I'll continue to pray for all of them and will be of service in any way I can. May God be with you all. Drake is also being sued as he also performed with Travis. 2019 Astroworld incident. Astroworld has been known to have one of the most aggressive crowds at a concert. For a rapper who hasn't won any Grammy, that's quite shocking. This isn't the first time the Astroworld crowd has gone wild. Back in 2019, 3 people were trampled and hospitalized as thousands rushed to get into the festival. Minutes before the gates were scheduled to open at noon, fans began climbing over metal barricades and surged toward the entrance, according to local news reports. 3 people suffered minor leg injuries and were transported to area hospitals after being trampled. Thankfully, it wasn't as horrific as the 2021 Astroworld Festival.